Hi, husband.
Hi, husband.
We're so excited for today's interview with Raising Buffalo's Dustin and Burton and their kids, Holland and Stone. If you don't follow them, Raising Buffaloes or BB Buffalo or any of their accounts, make sure you check out down below in the description where to follow them because they have amazing content. And stay tuned for the very end because they give some incredible inspiration. They're so inspiring. Check it out. Stay and watch.
Well, hi, husbands.
Hi, husband.
Hey. It is I just feel so excited to meet you both because I feel like I've known you all, and I just like I've already picked the room we're staying in on the farm.
Come on, please.
Yes.
I could use your help right now, actually.
Yeah,
That'd be really fun. Well,
Dustin's been out there all day long pouring concrete for fence posts, building.
I've been digging, and yes, I've never done fencing before, and so this has been a huge learning curve, and I'm like covered in like blisters and
Don't look under his fingernails right now.
so are the llamas there yet, or?
So that's
2
wI
weeks.
we're kind of scrambling right now.
Yeah.
So our barn that it was supposed to be done in October.
Yeah.
I don't know how people like in our neighborhood, we see houses just going up left and right in a matter of months. And for some reason, this barn has taken almost a year to build. It's been
crazy,
like 10, 11 months.
Well, I mean, there's always supply chain challenges and different challenges with contractors, but it's on the way. We have 2 weeks left. I feel like we're on one of those HGTV like
extreme
design challenges.
Yeah.
It's like the llamas and alpacas are coming on March 6th. We don't have a fence built yet, so it's kind of like
so
that.
we were telling our builder and everyone like we've got to have this done. Like we've got like it is time. The herd is coming, and kind of like so. Burton, I think he lied to me because I don't know this for a fact, but I think like. We don't have to have them come. Like they're being held at a friend's farm right now, and he was they have to come by March 6th. But something tells me that I think you've just put that date out to everybody just so that we can hurry up.
I needed to. Listen, I'm the project manager here. We'll have to put a line in the end and we'll just let it go.
So so every day we're out there trying to kind of button it up a little bit just to be able to keep these alpacas safe, and it's been a lot of work, but it's also been a lot of fun.
Alpacas too. Oh, alpacas! I'm sorry.
We have one llama, so we'll have one llama and 10 alpaca. So
we have a starter package herd coming in. They're all females. They're all tame. They're well mannered, and so we'll get to understand because we've never done this before. So this is all brand new things to us.
Yeah, and the reason for the llama is the protector animal of our alpaca because alpaca are incredibly docile. Like I think like there was like a coyote that jumped in, they would just like smile and like get eaten alive, just like just bouncing around.
Come on in.
Yeah. The llama actually protects them, so
which I want to see. Could you imagine a llama fighting off a coyote? I
don't want to see that.
We do have coyotes on the far right, and just I don't know, where do they paw them to death? I don't know.
So how do you make it all look so good? I mean, your house tour video your house is gorgeous, but just like the quality of your videos. I mean, clearly you both have a design eye. You both like just all him. How do you how are you able to, especially with kids, to keep it all looking so good and clean and crisp and
we would turn the camera around anywhere in this house.
Actually, well, today it's good because we just had our house clean today, but typically we just pick really good corners that are still clean.
Yeah.
And then there's the other corner that we don't show. Yeah. I mean, we do show sometimes.
We just move piles around from place to place.
Exactly.
I feel better because that's what we did too. I feel better.
Just make it work. And it just shove things in closets, stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, and you always seem to have the most gorgeous photos. And I'm curious, are one of you more of the photo taker and editor than the other, or do you have someone that you bring in?
It's a combination of us taking pictures. Sometimes we have photographers, sometimes random strangers on the street, and we're those people that are like, no, just tap it.
Yeah.
Totally.
Such a good tip. Just tell them take as many photos.
Yeah.
That's a good tip because I'm always like, no, it's okay, and then I walk away and I'm like,
Yeah, just keep telling the hit. I'm like, that's what we're like.
No,
just hit that button. Keep going. As
One
many as you
will
want.
work out. One will
That's
work
a
out.
good
Yeah.
tip to just tell the
That's a good
stranger.
Okay, love it. Now,
So,
where? Go ahead.
Background, me though,
Yeah.
I worked in fashion for a long time, and so I worked with photographers very closely. And even tomorrow, like I'm doing a big shoot where I'm doing hair makeup for it. But I understand. We both understand lighting and kind of curating. I've done it since I was 18 years old. I've worked as a makeup artist and a hairstylist, and I used to model. So like I've just been in that world, and I do have an eye for design. And so just kind of curating things comes really easy. It's definitely not incredibly stressful or forceful for us. Like it just kind of comes naturally.
Yep.
But he actually has an amazing eye for cinematography, like the way that he shoots stuff with video for video content, and it's all done on our iPhone. But he's quite creative. It's funny because he always says I'm the creative one, but you're really good at that too. So
Do you have a gimbal, or like what do you? Because there are some panning shots that you do, and is that all with your hand?
Just his hand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Like he gets low and he's just doing his thing. I'm like, it's amazing. Yeah.
Steven,
You.
the bar has been raised.
All right.
The bar has been raised. Now, where do you guys currently live?
So we're in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so we have a farm that's about 15 minutes outside of downtown Raleigh,
And we hope to move there at some point.
Yeah,
we're starting
back and forth.
Yeah,
two places.
And once we build it up a little bit and get a business running there, then three phases later, 5 phases later, we'll build a house.
Yeah, it's funny with age. Like we always dreamed about moving to a bigger city, just kind of wanting to be where the pulse is. And that's where we live. We basically live downtown Raleigh. It's really walkable. Lots of excitement and restaurants, things like that. And the older we get, now we're like turning into these like these just grumpy old men that were like, I just want space. I want to be alone. I want to be around just trees and animals and less people, which is so funny because I never thought we would ever dream about living on a farm.
Yeah, well, I don't think we're not too far out of the city, so still
that's true.
So accessible that we can 10 minutes away you're in the city. So
that is true.
It's great.
And you guys are back and forth between and
the pandemic changed everything.
The pandemic
right?
changed our lives completely. Yeah, I mean, I've lived in New York since I was 12. He lived in New York since you were 19. And then when the pandemic happened, we were in Pittsburgh for a little bit, and then we moved to Houston, which was only supposed to be for 3 or 4 months. We ended up being there for 2.5 years, and then we just moved back.
We're testing New York out again.
5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago.
That's so exciting.
That's
just so
yeah. We'll see. But back to you. I want to know with Raleigh. So did either of you grow up there, or did you meet there? Is that because I hear a little North Carolina twang in there.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm curious.
I grew up in Garner, where the farm is. That was my family farm.
That's right. I saw that. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I grew up there, and then moved to Raleigh. I mean, I've lived in Raleigh since I left college, and then that's where Dustin and I met. Right? He was traveling all over. You were living in. You tell him.
I moved here from Miami.
Miami.
Yeah. So I was living in Miami. I'm not from Miami, but I grew up in Charlotte. I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then I moved away and kind of traveled all over the country, starting out as a makeup artist, and then that led into hair and then a little bit of modeling. But I was leaving Miami to move to New York, and I did a pit stop in Raleigh because my brother went to NC State, which is the university here, one of the universities here, and it was only supposed to be for 5 months, and I basically never left. And so I fell into a relationship that kind of kept me here. And
that wasn't me.
Yeah.
We met at the, so
during that time we didn't meet.
You were fresh into Raleigh, maybe one of the first weekends that he was back here, and this was like 2005, I think 2005ish, right? And so I was dating someone at the time. He was moving back in here. Had a relationship that kind of kept him here, but we were friends since 2005.
Yeah, he was one of the first people I met. I got invited to a house party because I didn't know anybody here, and I knew one person that I met on a photo shoot like years before. And I knew that he lived in Raleigh. And ironically, that was his boyfriend at the time. Yep. And I didn't know that because we hadn't been in touch. And I just basically sent him a note saying, hey, I'm in Raleigh for a while. I don't know anybody. And was like, we'll come hang out with us.
We were at house party.
At this party. And then Burton, and I was like, hey. No, but we were friends forever. Like it was definitely no funny business at all.
We ran in the same circles for a long time, for years and years and years.
It was never romantic. It was just friendship, and which was really beautiful because over that time we really got to know each other.
Well, the best thing about it is all the ex-boyfriends and skeletons in the closet, all the mistakes they made. So you've learned that over the years and collected all that information. So
that's so true.
When we started dating in 2012, I think. I don't. I was just fresh out of a relationship. I walked up to him in one of the bars and I was like, hey, I'm single now. And he's like, no, I didn't. And I was like, well, do you still have my phone number? And he's like, I made sure I looked in his phone. I'm like, I was being crazy girl. And I was like, all right, you got my number. I was like,
but you were friends for that sounds like a long time, 2005 to 12. I mean, that's that's 7 years. Wow.
It is true. And I was getting really frustrated. I ended up staying here because I ended up opening a business and it did well. And I was, kind of like, okay, I'm going to see how far this goes. But I was struggling meeting people and dating people. And I kind of was at this point where I was like, you know what, I think I need to move to a bigger city to try that. And I was headed to New York when Burton walked into that bar and made sure that I had his number. And he was actually headed to DC.
Yeah, I was kind of living up in DC at the time, halfway. I worked for a tech company. I was doing consulting up there in DC. So I was kind of traveling back and forth. And I was planning on maybe moving up to DC at that time. And so both of us were kind of on the way out. And then we
found each other. And then we decided to stay.
Which has been a
beautiful thing. I mean, we really love it here. We love, especially raising children here. It's so easy. And we feel really embraced by the community here. So it's been a really good fit. Plus, we have a lot of family around us.
My parents, as soon as we built the house that we're in now, we built in 2014, and we built it with children in mind. Right? We always knew we were going to have kids. That was one of the qualifiers when on our first date. It was just saying, hey, do you want kids or not? Because if not, then we're just gonna we can have fun tonight, but it's not going to go much further than that kind of thing. So when we built the house, we built it with kids in mind, and my parents built a house right around the corner as soon as we finished our house. So they were, and which I would have never wanted.
I would have never wanted more kids.
Because they like mama walking over all the time, but now you're like absolutely.
Now I'm like,
there's
help. Why not move in with us?
There's a guest house. There's extra bedrooms.
Why be so far down the street? Move in with us. And I'm sure that you're feeling that too. With having living in New York. Do y'all have family in New York or no? You have no extra help. Yeah, that's hard.
No, we just we have a sitter who comes twice a week and kind of relieves Brett a little, and that's kind of what we're doing right now and testing the waters. Since it's all so brand new, and my schedule will change at some point, so I'm sure that will change too. But we kind of did the same thing in Texas also.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I'd be curious to talk to you about this too, because my family's in Texas, is where I grew up, but I think that they're not really, their values don't necessarily align fully with ours, if you will, and so we didn't really trust them spending time alone with Maverick. It's fine to have them visit, but I just didn't want to leave Maverick with them for extended amounts of time. And I feel like that's probably, I don't know. I'm curious because I've talked to a couple gay dad families and they feel like they're in a similar situation. But then I've talked to others who are like, no, our families are great and they're very supportive. So I wondered, 7 years into being dads, was there ever like a point of like contention, especially being in the South? I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. So like for me, I really struggled with being here only because of my background was incredibly conservative. And I actually, coming out of the closet, I went through conversion therapy. I was sent to conversion therapy and had like demons cast out of me. And so
he still has the.
Is there a video of that?
Is there a video of that? Because I've not heard that.
I have. So I have shared pieces of that. I think with
fascinating
coming out video, I think I touched on that. And so I, there definitely, there has been some of that still kind of carries with me living in the South and being reminded of that. But I think it was also just the bubble that I was growing up in. And there's so much more beyond that here. And so we have not really felt, judged or, like,
and we kind of are when people think of North Carolina, they think, you're in the South, this is completely different. But we have, with Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, like Charlotte, all the big metropolitan areas, you really are in a bubble. There's so many colleges here, like Duke University and
Chapel Hill,
and
it's super collegiate
around here, and especially the neighborhood where we built our house and where our kids go to school. And it's one of the smallest schools in the county, and they have there's only 2 classrooms per grade, and there's same-sex parents in both of our kids' classrooms.
Yeah,
and so both of our kids have twins. So it's a very
there's other and just more than that, there's other gay couples at our school with kids in older grades too.
Wow.
And we have just felt so embraced by the school and the parents. And if anything, it's almost like they kind of really reach out, and almost to the point they're like, we want the cool gay friends too. We want to check that box, and I'm cool with that. And that feels really warm, because I feel like, growing up and never even imagining coming out, let alone being married, let alone having children, you still carry a little bit of that fear of acceptance. And we've been blown away by the love that we've experienced here.
Yeah. And we didn't know, with Dustin's background and growing up, we weren't sure how it was going to turn out when we had kids. Back to your point of not fully trusting and who's going to be helping raise and manage the kids. With your parents specifically, we weren't sure how it was going to go, but that really turned your mom around specifically, right? She
100%. Like, it's wild, and I think I have to say this, like, I'm part of the blame. I think growing up in such a conservative home where I felt like I couldn't share my life with my family because I felt like I was always going to be judged. And it became this very superficial relationship every time I would come home for just the holidays and, share a little bit, but you can't share too much. And they didn't make me feel that way. But looking back, when we had kids, all of a sudden, you don't have time to even think about that. You just are surviving.
Yeah.
And so having my mom here or family here, and they're in our home and they're seeing us in the most raw way possible, where we're tired, we're just surviving, and we are a team and we're working together. And
especially with twins, we're having to keeping them on routine schedules, making sure that everything flows properly, and that we're not getting angry and yelling at each other.
Mom saw the love through that. I mean, it's totally changed their mind about us and about gay people. And it was really amazing because I finally allowed them in 100%. Like, it wasn't me just showing a piece of my life. I was sharing all of my life in the rawest way. And so that's been really healing, and that was really surprising.
And your mom said our relationship's better than any straight relationship.
She said we're one of the healthiest couples that she's ever seen.
She goes, "You're
compared to
your
like the normal relationships,
better than normal people." Well, that's a compliment, right?
Compliment,
It is.
way.
But from my side, my parents, they've always been super supportive, and I've always shared fully everything that's been going on. So I wouldn't trust in anybody more to help raise our kids.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
I think it's.
Well, that being said, do you have any crazy gay dads in public stories? Like, have you ever been to a place or anybody ever, or
Where
the
their head
airport,
kind of like
or
spins
like
around?
because we always have had somebody say something to us, right?
Of course. And that's happened.
But it's not really not to gay bash or
no. Well, there was that one time we were at a park near our house,
but that was
and our kids were like not even one, right? Or they were one, like they were really young, and we were just taking our kids for a stroll on the stroller, and we get to the park and we pull them out. And there's these group of guys that were at the park. And as they got into their car, they started yelling, slurs at us. And it was really kind of embarrassing because the park was packed and it was just families with their kids, and they're like throwing Frisbees and balls. And basically every single person in the park just stopped
and stared at
and looked at us and looked at them, and they sped off, and it was so uncomfortable. And I was so angry. That, here's this really sweet moment where we're just spending time with our kids. And it really got to me. And there
were some parents that came up and said they were sorry. Right?
They did.
They were like, that was uncalled for type of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, the most thing we get is, we're at Target and people are, they're confused. And so they're like, so you guys are giving your wives, a day off, that type of thing.
What they'll say is so wild to me is like, oh, you guys are babysitting for your wives, which is, first of all, if you're in a relationship and you think that when your spouse is watching your own children, that's babysitting, that's a messed up relationship, right out the gate.
It's so true. Yeah. I said to one of my friends, I was like, I actually don't even see that as homophobic. It's misogynistic. It's like they just assume that if there's a baby, that the woman is in charge of taking care of the baby. Yeah.
But I learned something early on, and maybe this will be helpful. You have to remember, like, some of these moments that were happening at the grocery store, like people would say, so which one of which baby is yours, and we're like, they're ours, and then they're so confused. And instead of being defensive and feeling guarded, which is something that I had to work on, especially coming from my background, instead you just say things that are very matter of fact. Like, there are kids. Like, this is our daughter, this is our son, and just keeping it very positive, matter of fact, is so important. And it's not just important for them to learn, but you have to remember your children are listening.
They're listening for sure.
They're listening. Yeah. They're seeing how you react. Yep. And especially as they get older, they, that only happens more and more. They're kind of in tune with that.
And our kids do the same thing when people ask, they may ask the kids about those dads. And they're like, no, I have two dads. This is one, and they understand. And I think, everything with them at this age is black and white, even keeping it down to, they know the gestational carrier who carried them, right?
Yeah.
And so they don't have to know, they don't have to think like, where did I come from? Whose belly was I in? They know.
We've been talking about that since they could even understand.
Yeah.
Showing them pictures of them in our surrogate's belly, and just explaining that because we want to be incredibly transparent with them.
Yeah. And so when kids say, hey, you have two dads, how were you born? They're like, and they'll mention her name. I won't say it on here, but they'll mention her name and they'll be like, oh, okay. So and it's not awkward for them.
Yeah.
It's just the facts.
Yeah. Was the plan always to try and have twins? Did you do two separate embryos? Was that always part of the plan, or was that just something that you decided on as you started your journey and started figuring that out?
We didn't know we were going to have twins, right? I mean, we knew we implanted two eggs.
Well, so at the time with fertility, it was the standard to put two in
because you would only
embryos,
get one,
And so, because our kids are. So they'll be 7 this year, right? Yeah. So, this was a while ago, right? And it's crazy how technology has really changed and advanced because now the standard is when you're doing in vitro or IVF, they will put in just one because it's gotten so good.
Yep.
And so we were fortunate because at the time the standard was 2, and they kept saying, honestly, 1 is really likely going to take. It's, you know, the odds are not in favor that they're both going to take. But behind the scenes, are you kidding me? We're like, please, like,
especially with one with his DNA, one with mine, and it was it's great that, and then a boy girl twin. It was
a miracle. We were so excited,
of course,
that it worked out that way.
And they're perfect.
They're so beautiful.
And
oh
so
my
sweet.
God, so beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
And how did you decide on their names? What was that process like?
Oh my gosh, we had.
Oh my God, this is so embarrassing.
So I got, remember that? I
remember the giant whiteboard.
So I went to like
size of
whiteboard.
Wait.
I need you in my life.
So I went to like Office Depot. No, I didn't go there. I went online to OfficeDepot.com. And was like, I need a whiteboard, and I said, I want a big one. I want like a rolling one that I can roll around the floor, kind of thing. I didn't know how big it was going to be. We couldn't even fit it in the house.
And I, being like super into design and like a nice space, when I walked in and saw this thing, like spider wall in your house, I was like, absolutely not. Like, why do you have this?
But anyway, so that was to put all the baby names on. And one thing you should never do is let everyone weigh in on your baby names. So that was one of the, most uncomfortable situations.
It's amazing what people will say to you. They're like, do you remember? Okay. Remember the first person that we interviewed to be a nanny for us?
Oh yeah, she told us we couldn't name our kids those names. So she was absolutely not. You can't do that. And we're like, excuse me.
She was like, "What are you going to name your babies?" And we're like, "Well, we're not really sharing that." She's like, "No, I want to know what you're naming your kids." And then we finally said it. And our kids' names are unique, I guess. You know, our daughter's name is Holland. Our son's name is Stone. It's just not, I guess, the most common names, right? And she lost it. And she was like, you cannot name your kids that. And we're like, you need to get out of our house.
There's the door. Thank you.
You did not get the job. But what we were saying is we wrote down every name that we could possibly think of.
We would hear cool names, and we would just come home and write them down, cross things out, just so we could keep speaking the names out loud. Like, and we would walk around the house yelling the names. So if so Stone, it's like it gets.
Were those like family name? Like how did you come up with Stone, or was that just like a name that you came? I mean, it's so cute.
Honestly, it was we were in Charlotte at some birthday party.
My best friend's has a son, and we were at a birthday party for him. One of his friends was named Stone.
And I was like, oh my God.
And we're like, that name, I love that name. And especially Buffalo. And I knew that we were going to use Burton's last name. So Stone, Buffalo. And they were like, we need a really cool middle name. So it was like Stone, Lockhart, Buffalo. And I was like, okay, that is a rock star name. But then for our daughter, we were trying to figure out what her name would be. And it was hard with Buffalo as the last name. I was like Annie Buffalo, like a hoop skirt and a wagon, like in a shotgun. Like, and we were like really struggling. We wanted like a cool name that didn't sound all Americana. I don't know.
But Holland is strong but feminine at the same time, and so unique. Love it.
Exactly. Yeah. He came up with that name. Point is, after we figured out the names, we burned that whiteboard, so it no longer exists, and it's not interfering in our.
We didn't burn it. We donated it.
Yeah, whatever. We got rid of it. I couldn't stay. It served a purpose, and then we did it.
But that board, when we put it up, everyone and their brother comes in and writes whatever they think the name should be on the board, and they look at your names and they're like, no, absolutely not, and everyone's weighing in and putting check marks beside stuff and stars beside everything.
Like I have a photo of like my mom and his mom and dad and my brother, and like everyone in the room, and everyone's looking at this whiteboard and they're all so serious. And I still have a snapshot of it. like that is just so funny
because we were like make it a team effort, and never do that. Just it's personal to you and your spouse. Yeah, you guys, you all figure it out, and then
we literally said to his parents when we told them the Maverick's name.
I said, we're going to tell you, because it was Christmas morning, and I was like, we're going to tell you his name. We've decided, but whatever comes out of our mouth, like, you cannot react. if you need to have some sort of reaction or
You can
say
leave the room.
something, you can leave the room and then come back, because I don't want to hear anything you have to say, like if it's a negative response. And I think my mom said, "That's interesting."
Yeah, that is what it is. She loves to say that.
That's the best, right?
That's the response you didn't want. You didn't want anything. Don't say anything.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so you both work. I'm curious about how you're able to balance parenthood and work, because I know you both have jobs. You know, Dustin, you're doing, you own your own business, correct?
So I sold my business a couple years ago. So I owned a hair salon and I sold it. But yes,
you're building the farm. You're going to have the farm. It'll be your new business, Holland Stone, which is brilliant. But how in the last 7 years, like, what's the trick to balancing work and parenthood?
Yeah,
it evolves, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at every different stage, you have to figure it out together, and that's why you have to have a perfect partner, a perfect team, because everything changes so fast with kids that if you're not figuring it out together, how you're going to manage that particular moment in life or that chapter, that you're not going to do well. But it's so that's one, you got to communicate. And
I think it's more than just that. So it's like you have to find balance, and it's not just work. And it's not just work and career and kids, but it's also work, career, kids, and relationship, and also, your own personal care too. And that's really, really hard. And I think that's the problem, that we always want to be able to do everything, and you cannot do everything. You cannot do everything well. And so I think the biggest advice that I always tell people, and what we have kind of always done, is, you just have to constantly change your priorities. So sometimes, some week where I'm like dad of the year, well, guess what? I'm behind in work, and I haven't spent time going to the gym and taking care of myself. So the next week I'm going to be less dad of the year and knock out my work. And that's okay. You have to just set those goals and know that it has to be more fluid. It can't be concrete.
Yeah. And also, read the room too, with regards to your partner too. If they've had a rough day, they're coming in, you can tell they're stressed out. Be like, I got this. I got the dinner. I'm putting them to bed. You go and finish what you need to do, or go take a break, or go hit the gym, leave and go do your thing for a minute. You need some you time. Yeah. Also important is to have us time, right? If we're not connected to each other, then we're not going to do well in our partnership, right? So making sure we find our time to go on vacations together, and I think, or go on date nights. And while the kids don't love that, they cry when you want to leave and go on a date night because they want to spend time with you. It's really beneficial for them to see what a good relationship looks like, because it's saying like, no, we love each other too. We also love you. We'll never stop loving you. You're our heart and soul. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we're married, and if we're in love, and we're going to go on a date night because we need to connect too, and that's when your kids watch you do that, they're going to understand what good relationships are.
Setting the relationship.
Wait, so you guys are giving, like, I love everything you're saying, and I'm curious, how have you become I'm not wise, but like, how, like, what was your journey? Have you like done therapy, or like, have you just always been like a healthy and balanced? No, I'm totally serious, because like, I think everything you're saying is so right on the nose and awesome.
You just sound so clear.
Yeah, you sound clear. So like,
it's not like, I feel like you've probably landed here just through your experience, but I'm really curious if you worked on it so that you can have this language, this vocabulary to clarify.
Because it's so healthy and so good.
So thank you. Yeah. It's trial and error. It's also, maybe it's trauma from the past that we're trying to learn from. But I think in the very beginning, when I was like, I did hair forever. And so one of my favorite things about doing hair is hair is just a tiny piece of it. The other part is the relationships that you're building. Yeah. And I just would pick people's brains constantly of relationships that I really respected, people that I admired, amazing parents, or, people that were amazing in business or whatever. Yep. And I would just ask so many questions. And one of the biggest pieces of advice that I got from someone that I really hold in high regard told me that you need to make yourself first, then your spouse, than your kids. And that was really hard for me to wrap my mind around, because I just thought, no, you have to put your children first. Like, that's what you have to do. But the thing is, children always find a way to make themselves first.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing. And you forget about your spouse, and you forget about yourself. And often when you see these parents that made their lives about their children, and then all of a sudden they graduate, they go to college, and then you're left with the person that you
a stranger in your house,
and they're strangers to you now.
Yep.
And so it's really important to make this relationship very important, And then one of the things that they said was, like, when they come home, the first thing they do, you automatically, of course you want to do this. Of course you want to run to your baby and kiss your baby and love on your baby. But he challenged me and said, run to your husband and kiss him hello first. Then your children. And that's really important for your children to see, but also to let you know that we are in this together. We have this connection. This is our family that we've built. And that's so incredibly special. And then one last thing is the me part, which is hard I think for me at least, to put myself first, because I want to make sure that he's doing good. I want to make sure my kids are doing good. And then often we sacrifice taking care of ourselves. But when we do that, then we start feeling like we don't feel attractive anymore. We don't want to be intimate.
Domino effect, right?
Because you don't feel like you've been taking care of your mental health, for your physical health. And it does. It's a domino effect. So that's why,
if you don't feel good in your body, you don't feel sexy, you don't feel attractive, you don't have the energy to do those things. And so if you're not spending that, it doesn't have to be going to the gym, whatever, going on a walk, being just meditating by yourself, whatever
just taking a moment for yourself.
It's gonna affect every other avenue.
But there's no right ratio. I mean, the thing is, it just constantly evolves. And so you have to take it day by day, and you have to show yourself some grace, because you cannot be perfect at everything all the time. That is impossible. So you have to show yourself some grace, and you have to remind yourself what your priorities are,
And I love what you said too, that they're constantly shifting.
Yeah. And it shifts so fast with kids, right? I mean, they're you're saying that Maverick's getting ready to walk, and that's a whole new thing. And how do we manage this? Who's gonna now you have to be all eyes all the time on what he's doing. Same thing but then all of a sudden they go to school, and then so now you have that time back. So what do I do? We need to now I can actually go to the gym. I can do things I want to do, but then
now our kids are in school, and then they do things after school. So they're doing swim and dance and things like that,
acting,
and all of a sudden we are having a lot more time together, or things where you can focus on things like this huge project that we're doing at the farm.
No,
that we could not do
binge watching Netflix.
Too. We do that too, but.
Same. We find time for that too somehow. So
It's just you guys are in a different phase, and you're going to. It's overwhelming right now because it is all consuming. But like the other day, it kind of dawned on me, because I remember having like a baby and then a toddler where your eyes are always on them. And then I would go to like a birthday party, and I would see an older kid where their parents are like, no eyes are on them. They're like drinking a beer with their friends, talking. Their kids like hanging out, like doing other things. And I kept thinking to myself, I can't even imagine being in that phase where you don't have to have your eyes on your children all the time.
We don't even know where they are right now. So
lies. But we were at the farm this weekend, and our kids, we had a friend out there, and our kids were just kind of exploring through the woods, and it was like the first time we kind of let them do that. And it kind of shook me. And I was like, oh my gosh, have I gotten there? I'm like, are we at that point now where we're getting a little more freedom, allowing them to have time with their friends, where it's like not on us on top of them?
Well, it starts with the house and inside the house first, right? Because I mean, you wake up on Saturday morning and the kids run downstairs. They're able to make a little, not real breakfast. They can kind of eat what they need to until you get up. They can also turn on the TV or play on the tablets, and they can hang out for like an hour before you get up and let you rest for a few minutes.
That was a
great when that started happening. We were like,
oh my gosh, we can finally sleep.
When does that happen? I'm gonna look.
I honestly feel like that happened for us just in the last year, where they started being a little more independent. But I do think like we are kind of lucky in the fact that they have a playmate. So, you know, where they're like, hey, let's go do this. That like where I feel like, you know, I don't know if it would be the same. I mean, it just depends on your kid, you know, if they're
more independent,
if they're more independent, or if they.
So I feel like Stone would always, if he was a single kid, he would need us all the time. Holland she already is ready. She's driving a car.
Yeah. She's the butler. She's the butler in the gold car. The gold car.
I think she's moving to New York next week.
You guys, this has been so amazing. Empowering to hear this. Okay, you can both throw these out, but what's like one thing, one resource, one tool that changed your perspective on becoming a parent and being a parent?
Well, go ahead.
I mean, I think my parents had a lot to do with, you know, how I parent, you know, watching what, you know, growing up with, and that's kind of why we're doing the farm too. When I grew up, we all worked as a team, right? I grew up on a farm. It was a pick your own strawberries, peaches, blueberries. We had cows and other things. And so we all worked together to make sure that this farm was successful. No one, you know, was able to stand by and not be a part of the team that made the livelihood for the family. And so everyone worked really well together and in harmony. So it was a beautiful thing growing up. And so they taught me a lot about good hard work ethic, but also how a real family should operate. You know, you all are you know, love each other and you work really hard for each other through that. And so I think that's part of what we do here in our family too, is setting is making sure that we're establishing the right rules, the right boundaries, everything we need to do to be successful as a family, as a unit. Yeah. And also I want my kids to have that experience too. So that's kind of why, you know, me telling Dustin about my experience growing up, we want to have our kids have that same thing on the farm. Not that they're working hard and you know, it's child labor. That's not what I'm saying at all. But you know, you do what the kids can do. They're out there right now. You know, they're, you know, even if they're walking the goats or playing with alpacas, they're still doing some things, and it's still really helpful. But
and then to add to that, I think for me, what's beautiful about being a gay couple having kids. I feel like a lot of gay people can relate to this, that we grew up having this expectation to live up to something that we possibly weren't. And being free from that mindset of allowing people just to be them. And our job as parents is not to make them into something, but just to love them and make sure that they feel really secure. I think that's really beautiful. And that's something that I've kind of learned just through maybe the trauma that I went through. And looking at my children, I just want them to be the best people that they can be, and know that they're loved and that we're always going to be there for them, and just kind of allow them that freedom to develop into whoever they want. So, yeah.
That was beautiful.
I'm so inspired.
Yeah,
I want to come live. I want to be your neighbors.
No. That was amazing.
We need you in our lives.
Yeah. We need to like know you.
It's in real life. It's just really your perspective is exactly like how we want to be dads.
Hope to be dads. We are aiming to be. And
so thank you for inspiring us.
So inspiring. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. It's really
it's very kind to say.
Yeah. And we'd be honored to hang out.
We are coming to New York for sure.
Yeah, show us around.
Yeah.
Come see his show.
Yeah.
And and we'll all hang out. Maverick will love it. And Holland can take Maverick around.
Yeah, she can.
They want more siblings.
They keep asking for more.
So Holland wants a sister for sure.
Do you think you'll do the journey again?
We have our baby right now is the farm project. We have talked about having other kids later on, and we have embryos still fertilized, frozen, ready to go. We've also talked about.
I don't know if we do that.
I don't know if we do the baby phase.
I would be more interested as we are getting older, and I think our life right now is chaos. We have a chaotic life, and I think, and we know how we roll. Like how we
Yeah,
that's our love language.
Yeah, we wouldn't do it any other way.
We call it adventure.
That's what we call
it.
We
have an adventurous life.
Yeah, you get us. So I think that we've talked about, and when we get the farm up and going, what a beautiful place to and we have some time to actually spend, with more children. We would be open to fostering even older kids,
or adopting.
Adopting.
So we'll look into that.
Yeah, but down the road. Right now, our full focus is trying to get this up and going.
We don't want to do anybody a disservice. We already have parent guilt right now as we're trying, and this is a real thing, as you're trying to do all these other things and create a legacy for them to take over at some point.
But even if you don't have